Cancun has figured prominently today, not talk of climate change, but of the party's voting position on tuition fees and who might have to fly home from the summit to make up the maths on the eve of this crucial vote. It's a sign of how delicate, or possibly desperate, the situation has become. Today, the Prime Minister, on what's been dubbed the How Do We Save Nick campaign, made some concessions aimed at heading off a major rebellion. Well, in a moment, we'll find out whether those concessions have actually swayed the Lib Dem leader Simon Hughes. But first, here's our political editor, Michael Crick. Just talk us into some of those concessions, Michael. What's going on?
Well, first of all, I mean, these are the latest concessions. They include increasing the number of part-time students who will be able to opt into the fee deferment scheme. Part-time students who will be able to, like full-timers, delay paying until they reach a certain level of income. Second, the threshold level of income at which you have to start repaying, which it's proposed should be £21,000, well, that will now be revised in line with earnings on an annual basis. So for quite a few graduates, it will put off, in their eyes, the awful day at which they do have to start repaying. And will these have any significant effect, do you think? Well, I think some effect. I mean, it's fascinating what's going on behind the scenes on both sides, both the Liberal Democrats and the bit I think we've ignored a bit much here, the Conservative side. You mentioned Cancun. There was interesting speculation today about Chris Hughes, the Climate Change Secretary. Mid-afternoon, he announced he was coming back from Mexico for tomorrow night's vote, and then he was going to go back to Mexico after that. Then this evening, it was announced he changed his mind. He was staying in Mexico. But Mr. Hughes has sort of reached an unofficial pairing arrangement, in a way, with a fellow Lib Dem MP, Martin Horwood, who is also out in Cancun as an observer at the climate change talks, who was planning to vote against the government. So they're sort of paired off two Lib Dems together. But the interesting side is the Conservatives, and the extent of the Conservative rebellion is becoming clearer today. I've got put together a list of 10 names, Conservative MPs who have either said they will vote against the government or abstain, or I know are thinking of doing so. Now, top of the list, David Davis. The 4 names on the top of my list are long-standing MPs, but interestingly, the 6 names at the bottom are all new MPs, and they've been coming under extraordinary pressure. David Cameron, George Osborne have been talking to them individually in meetings. David Willetts, of course, the chief whip. The thumbscrews applied to them. Now, in the end, I don't suppose all those 10 will vote against the government or abstain. 1 or 2 will cave in, but there's probably a few other Conservatives who may rebel that we don't know about yet. Overall, it's getting tighter. I think the government will still win, but it's getting pretty interesting. Fascinating. Michael, thanks very much. Well, Simon Hughes, the Deputy Leader of the Liberal Democrats, joins us from Westminster. Simon, thanks for joining us. How have you decided to vote tomorrow?
I've decided that I won't be able to support the government on the fee level for a combination of reasons, but particularly because I believe that for a constituency like mine, the level of fee increase from just over £3,000 to £6,000 a year, with in some cases fees able to go up to £9,000 a year, even though none of it is payable up front and only payable later if you earn over £21,000, may have a significant disincentive effect to the sort of youngsters who will go to university. So just to clarify, you will vote against it? I've moved to the position today that I will certainly abstain, and I've just come back this minute from a meeting with my local party officers and members who've asked me to consider if I will go further and vote against the government, and I will reflect on that overnight. So you literally don't know, as things stand, how you will vote tomorrow? That's true. Well, what's going to sway it in the next 24 hours? I have to come to a judgment, don't I? That's a personal judgment, which is the same issues my colleagues are wrestling with. I've decided that, although I support the package, I support the proposals, I support the general structure, which is better than Labour, the fee level is something that I can't support. The coalition agreement is clear. It provides for people who don't agree, who are Liberal Democrats, to abstain. That's the natural position for me to go to. But obviously, I have a duty to listen to my local party members and my supporters in my constituency, and they have asked me on this occasion to rebel against and break the coalition agreement because they believe that's important for our community and important given where the Liberal Party traditionally has been against tuition fees, which is still our policy. Your leader, Nick Clegg, has said that all ministers will be voting for it. When you look at your cabinet colleagues, what do you think? I understand that and agree with that position, and I've said that to Nick. I tried with him, as you know, and it was public, to get us all to be on the same page, all of us abstaining from Nick as Deputy Prime Minister downwards. In the end, that wasn't possible.
Did he try and talk you out of your position today? Has he?
No, I've had an honest conversation with Nick on many occasions. We speak regularly. We've spoken today, of course. He knows that I'm wrestling with this issue. He knows that I want to support him and support the whole range of coalition policy, and the dilemma is, and it's a dilemma my colleagues are facing, the dilemma is how we make sure we keep the coalition with all the good things on the road, and it's very important. It takes people out of poverty, it puts pensions back to earnings, it makes sure people on higher incomes pay more. All those things are good. I support all those things. I want to keep that going. But on this issue, I, like other colleagues, signed a pledge, and although that in many ways is neutralised by the coalition agreement, which allows us to abstain, I have to listen to my constituents, and I have to listen to the people who are our supporters and work for us year in and year out.
So do your constituents come before your ability to govern cohesively and coherently in a coalition?
No, you have to do both things, don't you, when you're a Member of Parliament?
But you are going to be making that split, aren't you? I mean,
no, Emily, you take your views of your community, and not everybody in my constituency has argued that I should vote against. Some have said I should abstain, some have argued that I should vote in favour, so there's not a coherent view. But the very strong, overwhelming view is to ask me to vote against. I have to take that into consideration. It would be discourteous not to. That's why I've been down in Bermondsey this evening. But obviously, I start from the position I've said to you that I think that the starting place for everybody who can't agree with the government, who's a Liberal Democrat, is to go to the abstention position which is provided by the coalition agreement.
OK, you're clearly a tortured soul, if you'll take that in the right spirit this evening. But take us through what's happening in your party at the moment, because on the one hand, Nick Clegg is telling us, well, you know, we didn't win the election, so we don't get to make choices. On the other hand, he's now campaigning for it as something that's totally socially progressive and the best idea ever. Now, I mean, there's a lot of disingenuousness going on, isn't there?
No, I have no doubt that the scheme as proposed, which will mean some people pay no tuition fees at all, irrespective of their earnings, some will pay about a quarter, will pay less than now, that everybody will pay less per month than now. All those things are good. And Vince Cable and Nick and others of us have worked very hard, and Michael Crick's confirmation of the 3 further progressive measures today are all good. So that's all good. I have no doubt that the policy we have as a whole for education is good, but there's a fees issue to wrestle with, and that's the subject we have to wrestle with for tomorrow.
Thanks very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
For tomorrow's big vote, Michael Crick and Paul Mason will be live tweeting from Westminster, and from the protest route throughout the day, details are on the Newsnight website.